All right, let's pull back the curtain on something that honestly feels a bit like a magic trick. We're going to talk about how a small team of auditors can confidently verify a billion-dollar company in just a matter of weeks. It's a method that our entire economy's trust is built on, and it all kicks off with one simple question.
I mean, really think about that for a second. A giant like Amazon, we're talking billions of transactions a year. How in the world could a team of auditors possibly comb through all of that in the tiny window they have to give their opinion? It seems impossible, right?
And the answer is, they don't. Yeah, it's a bit of a trick question. They absolutely do not check every single transaction, every invoice, every single purchase order. That would be, crazy expensive and take forever. No, they use a much, much smarter approach.
And that smarter approach is called audit sampling. It's this really powerful statistical method where, instead of looking at everything, auditors select a small but very representative group of items to test. The whole idea is to use the results from that tiny sample to draw a really solid conclusion about, well, everything else.
Honestly, this is the perfect way to think about it. You don't need to drink an entire pot of soup to know if you seasoned it right. You just give it a good stir, you take one spoonful, and from that single taste, you know what the whole pot tastes like. Audit sampling works on that exact same principle. The trick, of course, is making sure you've stirred the pot well, so to speak, so that your spoonful is a good one.
Now, I know what you're probably thinking. Wait, just a sample? What if they miss something huge? And you know what? That is exactly the right question to be asking. Auditors are paid to be skeptical, and they think about risk constantly. When it comes to sampling, there are two big risks they always have to manage.
And this table lays it out perfectly. On one side, you've got sampling risk. This is the chance that your sample just isn't a perfect snapshot of the whole thing. Your soup spoon just happened to scoop up a big chunk of carrot and missed the actual salty broth. It's a risk of pure chance. But on the other side, you've got non-sampling risk. This is all about human error. The auditor messes up, uses the wrong test, or misreads the results. The chef tastes the soup just fine, but they completely forget what salt is supposed to taste like. Two very different problems that need two different solutions.
Okay, so how do they actually do it? Well, there are two main flavors of sampling. And the first one isn't about the money at all. It's actually about testing a company's internal procedures, their rules, what auditors call controls.
This method is called attribute sampling, and it's basically a simple yes or no test. The auditor is looking for a specific characteristic, an attribute. For example, does this purchase order have a manager's signature on it? The answer is either yes, it's there, or no, it's not. There's no gray area.
And here's what that looks like in the real world. An auditor grabs a sample of purchase orders. For PO number 515, they look, and yep, manager's signature is right there. That's a pass. Awesome. But then they look at 432 and 819, and oops, no signature. Those are fails. In audit speak, these are called deviations because they deviate from the company's own rules.
So what happens with those fails? Well, they follow a very clear statistical path. First, they figure out the failure rate in their little sample. In our last example, that'd be 2 out of 3. But they can't just stop there. That's where they add a statistical safety cushion to account for the risk that maybe their sample was just a lucky one. This gives them a conservative, worst-case scenario rate. And finally, they compare that worst-case number to a limit they decided on beforehand. If their worst case is still below the limit, they can conclude the rule is working pretty well.
All right, so that's testing the rules. Now for the second major method. This is the one most of us think about when we hear the word audit. This is where we start testing the actual dollar amounts that are going on the financial statements.
This one's called variable sampling. And the question is no longer a simple yes or no. Now it's, okay, if it's wrong, how much is it wrong by? Auditors are hunting for monetary errors, what they call misstatements. Is an account balance overstated? Is it understated?
Before they even look at a single number, the auditors set a critical threshold. It's called the tolerable misstatement. You can think of this as their line in the sand for an account. For this example, let's say they've decided they can live with up to $50,000 of error. Anything more than that and it becomes a really big problem.
So they take their sample, they find any errors in it, and then they project those errors across the entire population of transactions. This gives them what's called the projected misstatement. So based on their sample, their single best guess for the total error in the whole account is $38,000.
Okay, so here's the crucial moment. You've got a projected error of $38,000 and your line in the sand is $50,000. Looks like we're in the clear, right? Well, not so fast.
Remember, just like before, that $38,000 is only their best estimate from the sample. They have to account for the risk that their sample wasn't perfect. They need that safety cushion. And that safety cushion creates what's called a confidence interval, basically a range. So instead of saying the error is exactly $38,000, the auditors say something like, "We are 95% confident that the true error in the entire population is somewhere between $30,000 and $46,000.
And here's the moment of truth. The auditors take the top end of that range, their worst-case scenario, and compare that to their limit. And in this case, the worst possible error, $46,000, is still less than their tolerable limit of $50,000. So with that, they can confidently conclude that the account balance is fairly stated. It's okay.
So you can see how this all comes together, right? By testing a company's rules with attribute sampling and then testing their actual numbers with variable sampling, auditors can build this powerful evidence-backed picture of a company's financial health, all from a small but very carefully chosen sample of data.
And this is maybe the single most important thing to take away from all this. Auditing is not about finding 100% certainty. That would be impossible and way too expensive. It's about achieving reasonable assurance. It's a very high level of confidence, backed up by serious statistical methods that allows an auditor to put their professional reputation on the line and issue an opinion.
So the next time you see a financial report for some huge public company, just remember the power of that spoonful of soup. The trust that holds up our investments, our economy, it often comes down to the careful statistical testing of just a small handful of items. And the fact that this actually works day in and day out is really pretty amazing when you stop to think about it.